A lot to discuss here, so I do want to bring in Adante Pointer, a trial attorney, to discuss all of it. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today and break it all down.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so first off, I do want to ask you, overall, what is the legal basis for the attorneys for Abrego Garcia to even ask for this gag order?
Yeah, sure. It's a very common and widespread rule that prosecutors are not supposed to be making inflammatory statements and essentially prejudicing the jury pool ahead of someone's trial. And so what's unique about this set of facts is that the defense team is not talking about the actual federal prosecutor or the immigration attorneys who are handling the case, but they're actually talking about government officials. Now, this is an instance where we have government officials, those people with very lofty titles, who are making all kinds of statements and characterizations of Mr. Abrego before and leading up to whatever trial he may have.
And I have to ask, because what legal standards does the court apply when they determine if this is something that meets maybe the requirements of a gag order?
Sure, the court is going to look at, a balancing test, essentially. Prosecutors and even government officials have a duty and a right to inform the public or educate the public about a criminal case or the government's business. However, that has to be balanced against the rights of the accused in terms of being thought of being innocent until proven guilty and having a fair trial. And so those are rights that the judge will have to balance. And if you're making statements that are essentially conclusory and or inflammatory and going against the person's character who's up on trial and is supposed to have the presumption of innocence until proven guilty, that can run afoul of those rules. And when you're making statements like this is a monster, a child predator, and things like that, you're probably crossed the line.
And the judge did issue a reminder that the indictment really only contains allegations. So what limitations do preliminary orders kind of offer, and why might the defense seek some stronger protections here?
Sure. Well, those preliminary orders are just that. They're preliminary orders, and they only last for so long of a time. The defense would also want these restrictions and more tighter restrictions to be placed all the way through trial, not just in the lead up or the days or the months to trial, but actually through the entire process, because jurors are also watching the news. Jurors are also looking at TV, and that could potentially influence or prejudice them against him without any charges actually being proved.
One thing that's certain here is that there are going to be questions about the legality behind all of this. Obviously, a court will have to look at it fairly closely, but how could maybe this gag order, if it were put into place, kind of impact the situation in general with people like Pam Bondi and Kristi Noem, who talk about this case a lot, being able to speak about it during news conferences? Will it have a major impact?
Well, I think they could still, once again, talk about the case, educate the public about what's going on with the proceedings, but they would have to refrain from calling this person a monster or a child predator and things like that. Keep in mind, he's never been charged and convicted of any crime until he faced deportation. So we're really talking about situations that are core to what's supposed to be the American judicial process, which is innocent until proven guilty and not prejudicing jury pools one way or the other leading up to trial, so that everyone gets a fair trial in the American judicial system.
It's important to note we don't have a crystal ball here. We're not psychic, but looking ahead, how could the judge evaluate the motion? What broader implications could a ruling, whether it's supporting or denying it, have for future cases in general?
Yeah, well, it could be precedent setting in the sense that it could be a guide or a measuring stick that other judges would use when they're evaluating government conduct leading in the future. So, this is a very important precedent that's being considered by the judge. And if you note, the judge really told prosecutors as well as the government to abide by the local rules as it relates to prosecutors. But once again, the wrinkle in this case is we're not talking about the federal prosecutor themselves. We're talking about high-level government officials.
Adante Pointer, thank you so much for taking the time to join us and kind of put some context into all of this. We're obviously going to watch and see what happens here, but anything we missed, anything that you want to add before I let you go?
No, I just would tell everybody, this is a very critical case because it deals with the bedrock fundamental principles of our judicial system. Innocent until proven guilty versus the rights of the government to inform the public of what's going on.
All right. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We appreciate it.
Appreciate you having me. Take care.
You too.